When I reached for the refrigerator in my own kitchen, she slapped my hand quick and sharp, like I was a kid sneaking a cookie. The sound echoed in the quiet of the early morning, and for a moment I was stunned. I just stood there, looking at my stinging hand, the physical pain nothing compared to the humiliation churning inside. Tiffany glared at me with such contempt, like I was a pesky insect, and said in a cold, unforgettable voice, "Where do you think you're going without permission?" I couldn't answer. The words just wouldn't come. It felt like my own house had become a prison, and I was the one trespassing. And then I heard Marcus, my son, the baby I carried, nursed, and stayed up all night with when he was sick, say something that just ripped me apart. "My wife is the boss of this house now. You need her permission to even breathe." In that moment my world just shattered, not because of the slap or her words, but because my own son was betraying me. I felt like I was falling through the floor. I was 62 years old and never imagined I'd be treated like this, humiliated in my own home. The same home I built with so much love and effort with my late husband Arthur. The walls that once echoed with laughter now felt like they were closing in on me. I looked at Marcus, searching for any sign of the son I knew. But all I saw was a stranger, a man completely under someone else's control, repeating his wife's words like they were gospel. I wondered when I had lost him, when he stopped being my boy and became this woman's puppet. Tiffany crossed her arms and smiled. That smile was pure cruelty. "Now get back to your room, Estelle," she said, using my name like it was an insult. "And next time you're hungry you'll ask politely. There are rules here and you will follow them. Understood?" I just nodded because I couldn't do anything else. My legs were shaking, and I knew if I opened my mouth I'd just burst into tears. I turned and walked to my bedroom, feeling their eyes on me like knives in my back. Every step felt like I was carrying the weight of the world. I closed the door and just collapsed on the bed. Tears streamed down my face. I cried silently, biting my lip so no one would hear, because even to cry, I needed permission in my own house. My stomach was growling, but the pain inside was so much worse. How did I get here? How did I let this happen? The questions tormented me as I stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling I painted years ago when Arthur was still alive. I felt like a stranger in my own life, like someone had stolen it and left me with nothing. I thought of Arthur and wondered what he would say if he could see this. He was a man of principle and would never have allowed anyone to treat me like this. He would have confronted Marcus. He would have set him straight. But Arthur had been gone for 3 years, and I was all alone in this nightmare. I remembered the night Marcus called me 6 months ago. His voice desperate, like only a mother can hear. "Mom, I need your help. Tiffany and I are having a hard time. I lost my job and we can't afford the rent. Could we stay with you for a while? I promise it'll be temporary." How could I say no? He was my son, my only child, the most important person in my life after Arthur. Of course I said yes. Of course I opened my home to him without a second thought. I never imagined I was inviting a monster into my house. At first everything seemed fine. Tiffany was polite, even nice. She helped me with some of the chores. She smiled when I looked at her. She called me mother like she meant it. Marcus seemed relieved to have a roof over his head and kept saying he would find a job soon and they would move out. "It's just temporary, Mom," he said every week. But the weeks turned into months and I started seeing small changes. Tiffany started rearranging my kitchen without asking. She moved my pots to places I couldn't reach easily. She replaced my towels with ones she bought, putting mine away like they were garbage. Small things I ignored because I didn't want to cause trouble. Then she started with the suggestions. "Estelle, don't you think it would be better if you ate dinner earlier? Marcus and I need privacy in the evenings." Or, "Estelle, try not to make so much noise in the morning. You wake us up." Each suggestion was really in order, and like a fool, I went along with it to keep the peace. Marcus never said anything. When I tried to talk to him about Tiffany, he just shrugged and said, "She's stressed about the money, Mom. Give her time." It was always, "Give her time." It was always, "Be patient." It was always me who had to give in. One day, Tiffany decided my TV schedule wasn't okay because she wanted to watch her shows. Another day, she decided I couldn't use the washing machine on weekends because that was when she did their laundry. And Marcus agreed with everything like a trained dog following orders. But nothing could have prepared me for what was coming. Nothing could have prepared me for the moment when my own house would no longer be mine, and I would become a prisoner in the place where I had spent the best years of my life. The storm was just beginning, and I had no idea how much worse it would get. It really started 3 months ago, when Tiffany announced at dinner that she had made some decisions to improve how we all lived together. I remember her putting her silverware down hard on the table, making me jump. Marcus looked at her with this adoring look that made me sick. "Starting tomorrow," Tiffany said, her voice so firm she sounded like she was running a business meeting. "We're going to have clear rules. This house needs order and discipline." I looked at her confused, expecting Marcus to say something, anything. But he just nodded like it made perfect sense. "Rules?" I asked quietly, my voice shaking. "Tiffany, this is my house. I don't understand why we need rules." She looked at me like I had just said the dumbest thing ever. She sighed and crossed her arms. I knew that meant she was about to say something nasty. "That's exactly why we need rules, Estelle. Because this is your house, and you've let it become a mess. Marcus and I can't live like this. If we're going to stay here, things are going to be done my way." The way she said "my way" made my blood run cold. She wasn't suggesting anything. She was telling me what was going to happen, and Marcus just sat there, betraying me with his silence. The next day there was a list taped to the refrigerator. A long list in Tiffany's perfect handwriting, telling me everything I could and couldn't do in my own house. I read every line, feeling anger build up inside me like a wild animal trying to get out. Kitchen schedule. Estelle can only use the kitchen between 8 o'clock and 9 a.m. and between 2 o'clock and 3 p.m. At all other times, the kitchen is Tiffany's exclusive territory. Exclusive territory in my own house. I kept reading, my hands shaking. Bathroom use. Estelle must shower before 7 a.m. or after 10 p.m. so as not to interfere with the couple's routine. My routine, the shower I took every morning at 8 o'clock while listening to the news, didn't matter anymore. I had to change for them. Living room use. Friday and Saturday nights are exclusive to Marcus and Tiffany. Estelle must stay in her room after 8 p.m. They were sending me to my room like I was some old piece of furniture taking up space. The list went on for over 20 items, each one more ridiculous and humiliating than the last. I ripped the list off the refrigerator so hard I tore the corner. I went straight to the bedroom where Marcus and Tiffany were still sleeping. I knocked hard, feeling rage boiling inside me. Marcus, I need to talk to you right now." Tiffany opened the door, wearing a pink silk robe I had never seen before, probably bought with the money I gave Marcus. She looked at me annoyed, like I was a salesman bothering her. "What is it, Estelle? We were sleeping." "This," I said, waving the list in her face, "is what's wrong. Who do you think you are to make rules in my house?" My voice was louder than I meant it to be. Years of frustration were finally coming out. Marcus appeared behind Tiffany, rubbing his eyes, confused. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked in that boyish voice he used when he wanted to avoid trouble. But he wasn't a boy anymore. He was a 35-year-old man who had chosen his wife over his mother. And that choice was killing me. "What's going on is that your wife put a list of rules on my refrigerator like this is her house and I'm a guest," I said. "Are you going to let this happen, Marcus? Are you really going to let her treat me like this?" I looked at him, begging him to show me some sign of the loving son who used to protect his mother from everything. Tiffany stepped forward before Marcus could answer. "These rules are necessary, Estelle. You can't keep living like you're alone. There are 3 people in this house now, and we need organization. Or would you prefer we continue living in chaos?" "Chaos?" I repeated, shocked. "I lived in this house for 40 years with my husband, and there was never any chaos. The chaos arrived when you two did." The words were out before I could stop them, raw and honest. I watched Tiffany's face harden. Her eyes narrowed like a snake ready to strike. "Marcus," she said without looking away from me, "tell your mother that if she doesn't like the rules, maybe she should find somewhere else to live." The silence that followed was deafening. I waited for Marcus to explode, to tell his wife she was way out of line, that this was his mother's house and no one was going to kick her out. But Marcus just sighed, ran a hand through his hair and said, "Mom, Tiffany's right. The rules will help us all get along better. It's not a big deal. They're just some schedules." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My own son was taking her side, agreeing with this craziness, making me the bad guy in my own story. "It's not a big deal," I whispered, feeling tears sting my eyes. "Marcus, they're taking my house. They're taking my life. How can you not see that?" I reached for him, just wanting to connect with my son again. But he stepped back, pulling away from me, choosing to be distant. "You're exaggerating, Mom. No one is taking anything from you. We're just trying to make this work for everyone. If we could leave, we would have already. But we don't have the money. We need you to be understanding." Understanding. That word became the excuse Marcus would use over the next few months. Every time I tried to defend myself, Tiffany would smile, knowing she had one. "I'm glad you understand, Marcus. Your mother needs to learn that things have changed." She turned and went back into the room, leaving me standing there with my son, feeling the distance between us grow. "How can you let her control you like this?" I asked him quietly, just trying to get him to react. "Your father would be so disappointed to see you like this, Marcus, turned into a man without a backbone." I know it was harsh, but it was the truth and someone had to say it. Marcus's face hardened. "Don't bring Dad into this. He's not here and you have no idea what he would think. Tiffany is my wife and I'm going to stand by her. If you can't respect that, then we have a problem." He turned his back on me and closed the door in my face. The sound of that door closing was like the closing of a coffin. I stood there in the hallway with the crumpled list in my hand, feeling my world falling apart. I had lost my son. I had lost him to a manipulative woman who had found the perfect victim. A man who was insecure, unemployed, and easy to control. I walked slowly back to my room, suddenly feeling ancient. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the pictures on my nightstand. Arthur and me on our wedding day, young and full of dreams. Marcus as a baby, chubby and smiling in my arms. A family photo on the beach, all of us laughing in the sun. When did everything fall apart? From that day on, I followed the rules not because I agreed with them but because I didn't have the strength to fight anymore. Every morning, I woke up at 6 o'clock to shower before it was too late. I cooked during the limited times Tiffany allowed. I locked myself in my room on Friday and Saturday nights like a prisoner. And the worst part was seeing Marcus every day, walking past him in my own house and not even recognizing him. The son I raised, the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world, now looked at me like I was just something in his way. Tiffany had completely changed him and I didn't know how to get him back. The weeks that followed were a silent nightmare. Every day, Tiffany found new ways to remind me that I no longer had control of my own life. She started rearranging the entire house to suit herself without asking me, like my 40 years of living there meant nothing. One day, I came home from grocery shopping and saw she had moved all the living room furniture. My favorite armchair, the one where Arthur and I used to watch movies on Sunday nights, was pushed against the wall, hidden behind a huge plant she had bought. A new gray sofa was in the middle of the room. "I bought it with the money Marcus saved," she said when she saw me staring. We both knew Marcus wasn't working, that the money came from my retirement check, but she lied right to my face. "You didn't ask me," I said, trying to stay calm, but I was furious. "You could have asked me before changing everything." Tiffany didn't even look up from her phone. She was sitting on her new sofa, painting her nails a deep red that looked like blood. "I don't need your permission to improve this house, Estelle. It was old and depressing. Now it has some style." The way she said old and depressing hit me hard. She wasn't just talking about the furniture. She was talking about me, my life, everything Arthur and I had built together. I tried to talk to Marcus that night, but he had his answer ready. "Mom, the old sofa was worn out. Tiffany's just trying to make the house nicer. You should thank her instead of complaining. Thank her for spending my money on things I didn't want. For erasing my husband's memories from this house. For turning my home into something I didn't even recognize. But that was just the beginning. Tiffany started inviting her friends over without telling me. They would arrive loud and obnoxious, taking over the living room like it was a coffee shop. I locked myself in my room, listening to them, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Once I came out to go to the bathroom, and one of them looked me up and down with disgust. "Is that your mother-in-law?" she asked Tiffany loud enough for me to hear. Poor thing. It must be hard being a burden at her age. Her friends laughed and I felt humiliated. Tiffany didn't defend me. She just smiled and changed the subject, leaving me standing there while they ignored me. She started controlling what I ate. She said I needed to diet, that I should take better care of myself. She got rid of everything I liked, the oatmeal cookies I had with my coffee, the chocolate I saved for bad days, even the strawberry jam Arthur used to buy me. "Those things have too much sugar, Estelle. They're not healthy," she'd say, filling the shelves with expensive organic food that I ended up paying for. When I bought something for myself, Tiffany would throw it in the trash. "I told you no sugar, Estelle. Why don't you listen?" And Marcus, my own son, agreed like she was doing me a favor, like controlling my life was an act of love and not cruelty. One afternoon I decided to make the chili that Marcus had always loved, the recipe my mother taught me. I wanted to connect with my son, to remind him of when we were a family. I spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen, putting my love into that dish. When I served dinner, Tiffany smelled the chili and made a face. "What is this? Smells terrible." My heart sank. "It's Marcus's favorite chili," I said, trying to smile. "He used to love it when he was a boy." I looked at Marcus, hoping he would remember. But Tiffany spoke first. "Marcus doesn't eat that kind of heavy food anymore. We're watching what we eat, remember? Besides, I already made salads." She pointed to the refrigerator where there were 2 salads in containers. 2 salads, one for her and one for Marcus, nothing for me. "I ate during my time," she added with that fake smile I hated. "I didn't know you were going to cook. You should have told me. The rules say you have to coordinate with me before using the kitchen outside your schedule." It wasn't true. I had cooked in my assigned time, but arguing was pointless. She always made me look like the bad guy. Marcus didn't even try the chili. He ate his salad while I stared at the pot of food that no one was going to eat. All that wasted time, all that rejected love. That night I threw the chili away and cried, trying not to make a sound. The days turned into a cycle of humiliations that piled up like stones on my chest. Tiffany criticized my clothes, saying I dressed like an old woman and embarrassed her. She criticized how I spoke, how I walked, how I lived. And Marcus never defended me. He just nodded or looked away. He stopped calling me Mom. Now he only said Estelle, like I was a stranger. Every time I heard my name without Mom, I felt like I died inside. Tiffany had erased even the connection between a mother and her son. I started being afraid in my own house, afraid to make noise, afraid to take up space, afraid to breathe. I tiptoed through the hallways like a ghost, trying not to bother anyone, not to exist. My presence had become unwanted, and I was disappearing. One night, I heard Tiffany talking on the phone. Her voice cut through the walls. "Don't worry, I almost have her where I want her," she said, laughing. "It's just a matter of time before she decides to leave, and when that happens, this house will be completely ours." Marcus already signed the papers I gave him. The fool didn't even read them. My blood ran cold. What papers? What was she talking about? I pressed myself against the wall, trying to hear more. "Yeah, the lawyer said that signature is enough. When she leaves or something happens, Marcus automatically inherits everything. And I, as his wife, will have rights over it all. That stupid old woman has no idea what's coming." I felt sick. Tiffany wasn't just taking my house now. She was planning to keep it legally, and Marcus, my son, had signed something without even asking me. The betrayal was so deep, I couldn't understand it. My own son was helping to rob me, even if he didn't know it. The next day I tried to talk to Marcus. Son, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you sign any documents recently? Anything about the house or inheritance? He looked confused, then uncomfortable. Tiffany asked me to sign some papers. She said it was to protect us if something happened to you, to make things easier. And you didn't think to ask me? I asked, my voice breaking. You didn't think I should know about something that involves my house? Marcus shrugged. That gesture of indifference was something he truly mastered over the past months. Tiffany acted as if it was totally normal for families to behave this way. I didn't want to burden you with legal technicalities, she said. Legal technicalities? My assets, my home, my entire life boiled down to mere legal technicalities. Marcus, your wife is manipulating you. She's planning to take absolutely everything. Can't you see that? But before he could even respond, Tiffany conveniently appeared, just like she always did, at the exact moment to interfere, filling Marcus's head with more nonsense. Estelle, don't you ever get tired of creating problems? She asked, looking at me with those cold, calculating eyes. Marcus, tell your mother to stop inventing conspiracies. She's paranoid because of her age. And Marcus, like the perfect puppet he had become, simply looked at me and said, Mom, Tiffany is right. You're seeing problems where there aren't any. In that instant I knew I had completely lost my son. There was absolutely no way to make him see the truth. Tiffany had constructed such a solid wall between us that my words just couldn't penetrate it anymore. I was trapped in a nightmare with no visible means of escape. Things went from bad to worse in ways I never thought possible. Tiffany started controlling even the air I breathed in my own house. She decided my room needed a renovation. Then one day, while I was at the bank cashing my retirement check, she went in and took out all of my things. When I returned, I found boxes piled up in the hallway, and my most cherished belongings were carelessly strewn about. What did you do? I cried out, seeing her come out of my room with a bag full of my photographs. Those are my things. You can't touch them. Tiffany didn't even flinch. She set the bag down on the floor and dusted off her hands as if she had been handling garbage. Relax, Estelle. I'm just organizing. Your room was a mess full of old junk nobody needs. I opened one of the boxes, and my heart shattered into a million pieces. There were the love letters Arthur had written to me during our courtship, the drawings Marcus had made in kindergarten, the shawl my mother had knitted for me right before she died. All wrinkled and tossed in with old clothes without any respect, without any care. These things are my life, I said, tears streaming down my cheeks. They are not junk. They are my memories. Well, your memories take up way too much space, Tiffany replied, crossing her arms. Besides, I need that closet for my clothes. The one in our room is already full. Our room. The master bedroom that had been mine and Arthur's for decades was now theirs. And now they wanted my closet too. My space, everything I had left. I am not giving you my closet, I said, trying to sound firm, even though my whole body was shaking. You already have the master bedroom, the big bathroom, half the house. My room is the only thing I have left. Tiffany smiled, that snake-like smile I knew so well. Well, then I guess these boxes will just have to stay here in the hallway. It would be a shame if someone tripped over them and got hurt. It was a veiled threat. If I didn't give in, she would destroy my things, throw them out, make them disappear. I saw it in her eyes, that calculated cruelty she had perfected. I swallowed and nodded, defeated. Fine, you can use the closet. Her smile widened. I knew you'd come around, Estelle. See, when you cooperate, everything is so much easier. That night I stored my most prized memories in a small shoebox that I hid under my bed. Arthur's letters, the photos of baby Marcus, the engagement ring I no longer wore because Tiffany said it was outdated. Everything I had left of my former life now fit in a box I had to hide as if I were a criminal. Tiffany started inviting Marcus to go out without me, something they had never done before. Let's go to the movies, she'd say, taking Marcus by the arm. Just the two of us. We need some couple time. And they would leave me all alone in the house, my house, feeling like an intruder who should be grateful they allowed her to stay. When they returned, they always brought takeout food, but only for the two of them. The smell of pizza or fried chicken would fill the house while I was stuck in my room with an empty stomach, wondering when my life had turned into this. Once, Marcus knocked on my door and offered me a slice of pizza. "We brought extra in case you were hungry." Before I could even accept, I heard Tiffany's voice from the living room. "Marcus, get over here. That pizza is for lunch tomorrow. You can't just give it away." And Marcus, as always, obeyed. He shrugged and said, "Sorry, Mom," before closing my door. He didn't even have the courage to stand up to his wife, to choose me even just once. The humiliations became part of my daily routine. Tiffany started leaving me chore lists. Wash her clothes, clean her bathroom, cook their favorite meals. When I protested, she said it was the least I could do since I was living there for free. For free in my own house, which I had paid for with my earnings for years. One day I dared to refuse. "I am not washing your clothes, Tiffany. I am not your maid." Her face transformed into a mask of pure fury. "Oh no? Well then I want you to pay me rent. If you won't contribute with work, contribute with money. $500 a month for your room." I repeated incredulously. "This is my house. I don't have to pay you anything." Tiffany moved close to me, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, the one she bought with my money. "This house will be Marcus's someday, and Marcus is my husband, so technically I have as much right as you do. Now wash my clothes or pay me." I didn't have an extra $500. My retirement check barely covered the household bills, food, and the expenses Tiffany constantly created. So I washed her clothes, hating myself with every garment I put in the washer, hating my cowardice, my inability to defend myself, my fear of being completely alone. Marcus finally found a job, but it was only a part-time position that barely paid $800 a month. I thought maybe that would change things, that maybe now they could finally leave and I would get my house and my life back. But instead of looking for a place of their own, Tiffany announced that the money would be used to further improve the house. They bought a huge flat-screen TV for the living room, a ridiculously expensive set of pots, new curtains for all the windows, all with that money that was supposedly for their independence. "And when are you planning to move out?" I asked them one night during dinner. The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Tiffany stopped eating and stared at me. "Move out? Why would we move, Estelle? We're perfectly fine here. Besides, you need us. You're an older woman living alone. It's dangerous. You should be grateful we're here to take care of you." Take care of me? They were slowly destroying me and calling it care. "I don't need you," I said with the firmest voice I could muster. "I lived alone for 3 years after Arthur died, and I was perfectly fine. You said this was temporary." Marcus finally spoke, but his words were even worse than his silence. "Mom, don't be selfish. Tiffany is right. At your age you shouldn't be alone. Besides, it is my house too. Or did you forget I'm your son?" Selfish. He called me selfish for wanting my own house back, for wanting to live without having my every move, every breath controlled. I felt something inside me definitively break, that something that had been holding me up, that hope that Marcus would eventually wake up and see what they were doing to his mother. "You're right," I said, standing up from the table. "It is your house too. Someday it will be all yours. I hope it's worth it." I left my plate unfinished and went to my room. I heard Tiffany tell Marcus, "Your mother is so dramatic, always making a scene." And Marcus laughed. My son laughed at my pain. I started avoiding them. I only left my room when absolutely necessary. I ate as little as possible so I wouldn't have to use the kitchen during their hours. I became a ghost in my own house, invisible, silent, non-existent. And still, Tiffany found ways to remind me that I was the problem. "Estelle, your presence makes Marcus tense," she told me one day. "Could you try to be less noticeable? When you are in the common areas, try not to draw attention to yourself." Less noticeable? They wanted me to disappear completely, to stop existing for their convenience. One afternoon, while I was cleaning the bathroom during my assigned time, I found papers hidden behind the mirror, legal documents with Marcus and Tiffany's names. I read them with trembling hands and confirmed my worst suspicions. Tiffany had made Marcus sign a broad power of attorney, documents that gave her complete control over medical, financial, and even house decisions if something happened to me. There was also a document claiming to be a care agreement where I supposedly agreed to let them stay in the house in exchange for them caring for me in my old age. The document had my signature, but I had never signed it. It was a crude forgery, but probably enough to create legal problems if someone questioned it. My head was spinning. Tiffany wasn't just taking my house and my son. She was preparing the legal groundwork to take everything. She was a calculated fraudster, and Marcus was her unwitting accomplice, or maybe not so unwitting. I no longer knew what to think of my own son. I put the documents back exactly where I found them. I couldn't confront them yet because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have money for an attorney. I had no one to turn to. My family was either gone or lived far away. My friends had become distant over these months because Tiffany always found excuses for me not to go out. I was completely alone and trapped that night. As I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, I thought of Arthur. I thought about how he would have handled this situation. Arthur was a man of action, not words. He would never have allowed anyone to humiliate us like this. And at that moment, lying in the darkness of my prison, something shifted inside me. A spark of anger, of dignity, of strength that I thought was lost forever. I still didn't know how, but I was going to get my life back. I was going to get my house back. And if that meant losing Marcus in the process, then maybe I had already lost him a long time ago. Maybe the son I knew died the day he chose a cruel woman over his own mother. The night of the refrigerator incident came as the final straw. It had been an especially difficult day. Tiffany had made me clean the entire house because she was having visitors the next day. Her friends were coming for tea as if my living room were her private social lounge. I spent hours scrubbing floors, dusting furniture, tidying every corner until my knees and back ached. When I finished, it was almost 11 o'clock at night. Tiffany inspected my work with a critical eye, running her finger over the window frames, looking for dust like a merciless supervisor. "I suppose it's acceptable," she finally said without even looking at me, as if she were giving me permission to rest in my own house after cleaning up for her guests. I went to my room exhausted but couldn't sleep. My stomach growled with hunger. I hadn't eaten almost anything all day because Tiffany had used the kitchen the whole time preparing elegant snacks for her meeting the next day. My assigned hours had been completely ignored. But I said nothing because I had learned that protesting only made things worse. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, the hunger was unbearable. I figured everyone would be asleep by then, and I could quietly sneak down to grab something to eat. Just a piece of bread, some cheese, anything to calm the emptiness in my stomach. I got up carefully, put on my slippers and left my room, tiptoeing like a thief in my own house. The kitchen was dark and silent. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking I had managed to go downstairs without waking anyone. I approached the refrigerator and put my hand on the handle. It was in that moment, just as I started to open it, that I felt the blow. A dry, hard slap on my hand that made me drop the handle immediately from the pain and surprise. "Where do you think you're going without permission?" Tiffany's voice came out of the darkness like a serpent's hiss. She flicked on the kitchen light, and there she was in her pink silk robe with a look of pure fury on her face. My hand was stinging where she had hit me, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt. "I'm hungry," I said, my voice barely audible. "I just wanted to get something to eat." I hated myself for sounding so weak, so pleading. Tiffany crossed her arms and blocked the refrigerator with her body, as if it were a treasure she had to protect from a thief. "At 2 in the morning without even asking me? I've already told you 1,000 times that the food in this house is managed, Estelle. You can't just come and eat whenever you feel like it." "It's my refrigerator," I whispered, feeling the tears start to well up in my eyes. "My food, my house." But even as I said those words, I knew they sounded hollow, devoid of any real power. Tiffany laughed, a cruel laugh that echoed in the silent kitchen. "Your house? We'll see about that." I heard footsteps on the stairs and Marcus appeared, disheveled and sleepy-eyed. "What's going on? Why are you shouting?" I looked at my son with hope, thinking that maybe this time, just this one time, he would defend me, that he would see the absurdity of the situation. An older mother being slapped for trying to eat in her own house. Your mother was trying to steal food from the refrigerator without permission, Tiffany said before I could even speak. I've explained the rules to her 1,000 times, but she just won't listen. Steal. She had called me a thief in my own kitchen. I looked at Marcus pleadingly, waiting for him to say something, anything. Mom, Marcus said with a tired sigh. Is it really necessary to do this in the middle of the night? You know the rules. If you were hungry, you could have waited until morning. My legs began to tremble. My own son was blaming me for being hungry, for wanting to eat in my own house, for existing. Marcus, please, my voice broke. It's ridiculous. She slapped my hand for trying to open the refrigerator. Don't you see how sick this is? I held out my hand, showing him the red mark that was beginning to form. Look at me, son. Look at me and tell me this is okay. But Marcus didn't look at my hand. Instead, he looked at Tiffany, who gave him a meaningful look I couldn't quite decipher. And then my son said the words that would destroy any hope I had left. My wife is the boss of this house now. You need her permission even to breathe. The world just stopped even to breathe. The words floated in the air like sharp knives, stabbing my heart again and again. My son had just told me that I had no right, even to the air I breathed, without his wife's permission in my own house. The house I built with his father, the house where he was born, where he took his first steps, where I grew as a mother. Tiffany smiled triumphantly. She had completely won. She had taken my son and turned him into her weapon against me. See, Estelle? Even Marcus understands how things work now. The faster you accept it, the better for everyone. She walked over to the refrigerator, calmly opened it, and took out a bottle of water. She drank it in front of me slowly, savoring not just the water, but her complete victory. Now get back to your room, she ordered, closing the refrigerator. And the next time you're hungry during unauthorized hours, deal with it or ask for permission as appropriate. Marcus nodded, backing her up. Mom, just go to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. But I knew we wouldn't talk about anything tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the same as today, and the day after that, too. I walked up the stairs, feeling that every step cost me a piece of my soul. I entered my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, and it was there in the darkness of my prison, where everything finally changed. Something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I didn't break in defeat. I broke into clarity. I saw my life with brutal sharpness. I saw that I had been begging for love, begging for respect, begging for a place in my own home. I had allowed them to reduce me to nothing, to turn me into a pleading shadow, and all because of fear. Fear of losing Marcus, fear of being alone, fear of admitting that my son was no longer the boy I knew. But that night, with my hand still stinging from the slap, with an empty stomach and a shattered heart, I made a decision, a cold, clear, definitive decision. I was no longer going to beg. I was no longer going to plead. I was no longer going to allow them to treat me like trash in my own house. I got up and turned on my bedroom light. I searched under my bed for the box where I kept my most precious things. Inside was a little bit of money I had been saving in secret, $20 and $50 bills I hid whenever I could. It wasn't much, maybe a couple of hundred in total, but it was something. I also pulled out an old notebook and started writing. I wrote down everything that had happened in these months. Every humiliation, every abuse, every moment Marcus chose Tiffany over me. I didn't know what this record would be good for, but something told me I had to document everything. As I wrote, tears fell onto the paper, staining some of the words, but I didn't stop. I wrote until my hand ached, until I had emptied all the accumulated poison from my chest. And when I finished, when there were no more words to write, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to give them the spectacle of seeing me broken and pleading one more time. I was going to do something they would never expect from me. Something that would hurt them much more than any scream or complaint. I was going to leave. I was going to disappear from their lives and leave them with exactly what they wanted. The house without me. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I stayed sitting on my bed, looking out the window as the dark sky slowly transformed into a gray sunrise. With every minute that passed, my decision became more solid, more clear. There were no more doubts, no more fear. There was only a cold, definitive certainty. I had to get out of there before they completely destroyed me. At 6 o'clock in the morning, when I heard Marcus and Tiffany getting up, I sprang into action. I waited until they went into the bathroom and then locked my door. I pulled an old suitcase from the closet, the one Arthur and I had used on our last trip to the coast together. I ran my fingers over the worn surface, remembering better days. Days when love and respect were not a luxury, but something natural. I packed the essentials. Clothes for a week, my personal documents, the photographs I kept in the shoebox, Arthur's letters. Everything that truly mattered fit in a small suitcase. 40 years of life reduced to a few objects I could carry alone. I realized that everything else, the furniture, the appliances, the material things, meant nothing without dignity. I put the money I had saved in my purse along with my medication and the house keys. I looked around my room one last time. Those walls had witnessed so many important moments. Sleepless nights taking care of Marcus when he was a baby, late-night conversations with Arthur planning our future, tears shed after his death. Now they were just walls that held in my suffering. I heard Marcus and Tiffany going downstairs to eat. Perfect. I heard them arguing about what to have for breakfast. I heard Tiffany giving orders and Marcus obeying. That morning ritual had completely excluded me. I waited a few more minutes until I was sure they were busy in the kitchen. I grabbed my suitcase and my purse. I breathed deeply. This was the moment. I opened my door slowly, grateful that the hinges didn't creak. I walked down the hallway toward the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought they would hear me. But they were too absorbed in their world, in their bubble where I didn't exist. I went down the stairs step by step, holding my breath. The front door was only a few feet away, a few more steps, and I would be free. But just before leaving I stopped. I couldn't just leave. They needed to know that this time was different, that it wasn't a tantrum or a drama, it was a final decision. I left my suitcase by the door, and went to the foyer table where we always left the mail. I took a piece of paper and a pen from my purse. My hand trembled slightly, but my mind was completely clear. I began to write in a firm, calm hand. Marcus and Tiffany. I'm leaving. Don't try to find me. The house is all yours now, just as you want it. Enjoy everything you so desperately wanted to take from me. But remember that a house without love is just an empty building. We'll see how long it takes that truth to catch up with you. The property taxes are due next month. They are $1,200. The water and electricity are paid at the payment center every 15th. The heating system needs maintenance before winter. It costs around $300. I hope Marcus's part-time job is enough to cover everything. Estelle. I reread the letter. It was perfect. Short, cold, informative with no tears, no pleas, no drama, just facts. I left it in the center of the table where they couldn't miss it. Then I grabbed my suitcase and opened the front door. The cool morning air hit my face like a slap of reality. I didn't look back. If I saw my house one more time, I might falter. I closed the door softly behind me with a gentle click and I walked down the path toward the street. Each step felt lighter, as if I was shedding not just a house, but also the invisible chains that had been choking me. I didn't have a concrete plan, but I did have a destination in mind. Beverly, my childhood friend, lived across town. We had grown distant over the last few months because Tiffany always manufactured excuses when I suggested a visit, claiming that Marcus needed me, or that there were chores to be done around the house, or that it wasn't safe for me to go out alone. Now I realized it was simply another tactic to isolate me, to sever me from any outside support. I walked 3 blocks to the bus stop. The sun was now fully risen, painting the sky with vibrant oranges and delicate pinks. It was a truly beautiful sight, and I realized it had been months since I had taken the time to appreciate a sunrise. I had been so utterly consumed by just trying to survive inside that house that I had completely forgotten that a world existed beyond its walls. The bus finally arrived and I boarded it. The driver gave me a curious glance when he noticed my suitcase, But he didn't say anything. I settled into a seat by the window and watched the familiar streets of my neighborhood slowly pass by. I knew every corner, every store, every tree. I had spent my entire adult life living there. I wasn't just leaving behind a house. I was leaving behind an entire life. But strangely, I didn't feel any sadness. Instead, I felt something akin to peace. It was like taking off a shoe that has been pinching your feet all day, and finally allowing your feet to breathe. The constant oppression, the perpetual fear, the daily humiliation. All of it was being left behind with every mile the bus traveled. I arrived at Beverly's house after a 40-minute ride. It was a modest but inviting house with colorful flowers planted in the front yard, and a comfortable rocking chair placed on the porch. Beverly had always possessed a natural talent for making any space feel warm and welcoming. I rang the doorbell, feeling nervous for the first time since I had left. What if she didn't want to see me? What if she thought I had lost my mind? The door swung open, and there stood Beverly with her silver hair neatly pulled back in a bun and her kind eyes peering out from behind her glasses. When she saw me standing there with my suitcase, her expression instantly shifted from surprise to concern. "Estelle, my God, what happened?" she exclaimed. She didn't say anything else. She simply opened her arms wide, and I collapsed into them. I cried as I hadn't cried in months. I cried for everything I had lost, for my son who I no longer recognized, for the house I had left behind, and for the woman I used to be and had almost forgotten. Beverly held me tightly without asking any questions, allowing me to release all of the accumulated pain that I had been carrying inside. When I was finally able to speak, I told her everything, every single detail, every humiliation, every moment of brokenness. Beverly listened in silence, her face showing increasing outrage with each word I spoke. When I finished my story, she took both of my hands in hers and said with a firmness that comforted me, "You are staying here for as long as you need to. This is your home now. And that son of yours and that viper of a wife are going to deeply regret treating you the way they did. You'll see." I settled into Beverly's guest room. It was small but cozy, with cheerful light green curtains and a comfortable bed with a soft comforter. That night, I slept more deeply than I had in months. There were no nightmares, no startled awakenings every time I heard a noise, just peaceful restorative sleep. Meanwhile, back at my old house, Marcus and Tiffany were waking up to a stark new reality. I could vividly imagine the scene. Tiffany shouting my name, expecting the breakfast that would never arrive. Marcus going upstairs to look for me and finding my room completely empty. The initial panic, the confusion, and then finally finding the letter I had left behind. I imagined them reading it, maybe even laughing about it at first, thinking it was just a childish tantrum and that I would be back soon. But something would tell them that this time was different, that there was no turning back, that they had finally pushed me too far, and that the submissive mother, the convenient mother-in-law, had disappeared forever. And most importantly, they would now have to confront the reality of everything I had been managing alone all this time. The expenses, the responsibilities, the bills that arrived every month, everything they had taken completely for granted while treating me like I was nothing more than trash. Now it was all their problem to deal with. The first week at Beverly's house felt like waking up from a long, exhausting nightmare. Every morning, I opened my eyes expecting to hear Tiffany's shrill voice ordering me to do something. But instead, there was only peaceful silence and the cheerful sound of birds singing outside. Beverly treated me with a kindness I had almost forgotten existed, making me coffee every morning and asking me how I had slept without expecting anything in return. "You don't have to do a thing," she told me on the third day when she found me washing the breakfast dishes. "Just rest, Estelle. Recover." But I needed to feel useful. I needed to prove to myself that I still had worth beyond being someone's emotional punching bag. So I insisted on helping with the chores. But this time it was different. I did it because I wanted to, not because I was forced to. My phone started ringing on the second day. It was Marcus. I let it ring until it stopped. Then came the text messages. First they were confused. "Mom, where are you? We're worried." Then they became more urgent. "We need to talk. Please answer." And finally they revealed their true colors. "The bills are coming. We don't know what to do. You have to come back. I didn't respond to any of them. Every message that arrived was further confirmation that I had made the right decision. They weren't asking how I was, if I was okay, or if I had a place to sleep or something to eat. They were only concerned about the bills, the responsibilities, everything I had been handling on my own while they had been enjoying my house like ungrateful parasites. Beverly told me that Marcus had actually come to her house looking for me on the 4th day. He was ringing the doorbell like a maniac, she said while we were having tea in her living room. I told him I had no idea where you were, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell him. He looked absolutely desperate, Estelle. But it wasn't the desperation of a son who was worried about his mother. It was the desperation of someone who had just realized they had lost their safety net. She was absolutely right. Marcus' messages confirmed it. They had initially thought they could handle things on their own. Marcus' part-time job paid only $800 a month. The property taxes alone were $1,200. The math simply didn't work. And that didn't even include the electricity, water, gas, food, gas for the car, and all of the expenses that Tiffany racked up with her constant frivolous whims. Tiffany actually tried to call me once. Just once. Her voice on the voicemail was icy cold. Estelle, I know you're just being dramatic and looking for attention. When you're done throwing your little tantrum, come home. But don't think for 1 second that this is going to change the rules. Things will continue to be exactly the way I say they will. I deleted the message immediately, feeling a mixture of both indignation and satisfaction. She still didn't understand anything. She still truly believed that she was in control. In the 2nd week, Beverly finally convinced me to block their numbers altogether. You don't need to read any of that, Estelle. It only hurts you, and they don't deserve another second of your time or attention. So I blocked Marcus. I blocked Tiffany. And it felt like finally closing a door that had been wide open, letting in cold drafts for months. I slowly started to recover. Beverly took me for walks in the park every afternoon. First, I got tired very easily. Months of constant stress had weakened my body more than I had realized. But little by little, my strength started to return. And something else returned too. My smile. One day, Beverly took a picture of me while we were feeding the ducks at the pond. And when I saw it, I was actually surprised. That smiling woman in the photo was me. But it had been so long since I had seen myself like that I barely even recognized myself. You look 10 years younger, Beverly commented. It's absolutely amazing what peace of mind can do for a person. She was right. The wrinkles around my eyes seemed less deep. My posture was more upright. Even my voice sounded different, stronger, and more confident. I was slowly finding myself again after months of being completely lost. Meanwhile, as I later learned from a neighbor who Beverly ran into at the grocery store, things at my old house were rapidly falling apart. The first bill they were unable to pay was the property taxes. A notice arrived from the county tax office with a stern warning of foreclosure if they didn't pay within 30 days. Marcus tried to get a loan, but with his shaky part-time job and no solid credit history, no bank would even consider lending him any money. Tiffany started pressuring Marcus to find more work. How is it even possible that you can't even manage to keep a roof over our heads? She screamed at him, according to the neighbor, who overheard them fighting through the open windows. You're completely useless, just like your mother. The irony was absolutely delicious. Now Marcus was experiencing the very same treatment that I had endured, and Tiffany was showing her true colors without the filter that she had always used when I was present. Water was next. After failing to pay for 2 months in a row, the water company finally cut off their service. Suddenly, the house that Tiffany had been so meticulously redecorating with such care had no water for bathing, for cooking, or for washing her expensive clothes. They were forced to carry buckets of water from a neighbor's house, who temporarily took pity on them. The princess, who had always scoffed at my old, outdated things, was now hauling water like she was living in a rural village. Food soon became another significant problem. Tiffany was accustomed to buying expensive organic products, premium cuts of meat, and imported cheeses. With only a few $100s a month coming in and mounting bills piling up, those luxuries quickly vanished. They started eating cheap noodles and rice every single day. The same Tiffany who had controlled my every bite was now going hungry because of her own stupidity. Marcus tried desperately to get a second job, but no one was willing to hire him. He was desperate, stressed, and probably not sleeping well at all. And instead of offering him any support, Tiffany blamed him for absolutely everything. "This is all your fault," she told him. "If you had been more of a man, if you had been able to properly support me, we wouldn't be in this mess. Your mother ruined everything by leaving." The neighbor told me that part with a great deal of indignation. "I really let your son have it, Estelle. I told him that they treated his mother like she was nothing but trash, and now they were finally reaping exactly what they had sown. You should have seen the look on his face." I imagined the scene and felt a small measure of satisfaction. It wasn't revenge that I was seeking. It was simply justice, and justice was finally catching up to them. In the third week, I received a certified letter. It was from a lawyer representing Marcus. I opened the envelope with trembling hands, fearing the worst. The letter was a formal request for me to return to the house to fulfill my family obligations, and it included a thinly veiled threat that if I refused, they would take legal action to protect the family's assets. I immediately showed the letter to Beverly. She promptly called her nephew, who was a lawyer. He read the letter and burst out laughing. "This has absolutely no legal standing whatsoever, Ms. Vaughn. They cannot legally force you to live in your own house, or to pay any of the bills if you don't want to. In fact, they are actually the intruders from the moment you left. You have every single right to evict them if you choose to do so." Evict them? The thought had honestly never even crossed my mind. The house was still legally mine. It was in my name. I had left, but they had absolutely no legal right to remain there without my express permission. Beverly's attorney explained that I could begin the eviction process immediately. It would take approximately 2 months, but the house would once again be completely and solely mine. I thought about it constantly all night long. Did I actually want the house back? Did I really want to return to that place that was now filled with such bitter and painful recent memories? The house where my own son had betrayed me, where I was physically assaulted for simply trying to eat something, where I slowly but surely lost all of my dignity. On the other hand, it was also my home. The home that I had built with Arthur, where we had lived our very best years. Ultimately, I decided to wait, but not out of any sense of weakness. Rather, out of a very carefully considered strategy. I wanted Marcus and Tiffany to fully experience the full weight of their actions. I wanted them to hit rock bottom, to truly understand that the life that I had been providing for them was neither easy nor free. And above all else, I desperately wanted Marcus to wake up from Tiffany's manipulative grasp and see what he had truly lost. At the very end of the month, the electricity shut-off notice finally arrived. The house was now completely dark, without any water or electricity, with debts rapidly piling up and absolutely no money to pay for anything. The fantasy that Tiffany had so carefully constructed was now crumbling brick by brick, and Marcus was finally starting to see the truth that he had been desperately avoiding for months. It was in the 4th week that everything definitively exploded. Beverly arrived one afternoon with some very fresh news that she had gathered from her extensive network of neighborhood informants. "Estelle, you are absolutely not going to believe what just happened," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Tiffany has left Marcus. She just packed up all of her bags and left the house, telling him that he was a complete failure who couldn't even manage to keep a roof over their heads." I stood there completely paralyzed, trying to process the shocking information. Tiffany had abandoned Marcus. The very same woman who had sworn to love him in sickness and in health, who had manipulated him into betraying his own mother, who had turned him into her completely obedient puppet, had left him the very instant that he ceased to be useful to her. The irony was so incredibly perfect that it almost physically hurt. "And what about Marcus?" I asked, unable to stop myself. Despite everything that he had done to me, he was still my son, and a part of me still worried about him. "He's completely devastated," Beverly replied. "The neighbor says that he has been crying all day. The house is a complete mess. No electricity, no water. He's just still there like a ghost, not even knowing what he should do. I was completely unable to sleep at all that night. I kept imagining Marcus all alone in that dark house, probably hungry, penniless, and completely abandoned by the woman for whom he had sacrificed his own mother. One part of me wanted desperately to rush over there and help him, to hug him tightly like I used to when he was just a little boy and would have nightmares. But another part, the part that had grown so much stronger over these past few weeks, knew deep down that if I did that, I would essentially be validating everything that he had done to me. I would be telling him that he could treat me like trash, and I would always be there to pick up all of the broken pieces. On the 5th day after Tiffany left, Marcus showed up at Beverly's house. He arrived at dusk, looking completely haggard and dirty, with deep circles under his eyes and wearing wrinkled, stained clothes. Beverly let me know through the intercom. "He's here. Do you want to see him?" My heart started beating incredibly fast. This was the moment that I had both been desperately avoiding and anticipating at the very same time. "Tell him to come in," I replied with a shaky voice. I sat down in the living room and waited for him, trying my absolute best to prepare myself for whatever was about to happen. When he finally walked in, I barely even recognized him. My son, who had always been so meticulous about his appearance, looked more like a homeless vagrant. He had several days' worth of beard growth, greasy, disheveled hair, and a badly stained shirt. But what impacted me the most were his eyes. They were red and swollen, filled with a deep pain that I knew all too well. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. That single word, which I hadn't heard from his lips in months, sounded both incredibly strange and achingly familiar at the very same time. He stood there at the entrance to the living room, as if he didn't even know if he had permission to approach me. I didn't say anything at all. I just looked at him, waiting, needing him to take the very first step and say everything that he needed to say. "I'm sorry," he finally whispered. "I'm so sorry, Mom. You were right about absolutely everything. About Tiffany. About what she was doing to me. About what we did to you." Tears began to roll down his cheeks, leaving clean trails on his dirty face. I was a complete idiot. I was the worst son in the entire world. I treated you like absolute trash when you had only ever given me love my entire life. I wanted so badly to run to him, hug him, and tell him that everything was forgiven. But I forced myself to stay seated, remaining firm. "And what has changed, Marcus?" I asked in a quiet but very cold voice. "Are you only apologizing because you truly understand what you did, or simply because Tiffany left you and now you're all alone?" The question hung in the air between us like a sharp knife. Marcus completely collapsed. He literally fell to his knees right there on the living room floor, sobbing uncontrollably like a small child. "You're right. I only truly realized everything after she left. She told me that I was completely useless, that I was never worth anything at all, that she had only even tolerated me because she thought that you had more money. She actually said that she completely wasted her time with me." His words came out brokenly between sobs. "And while she was saying all of that to me, the only thing that I could think about was how I said almost exactly the same things to you, how I treated you even worse than I would have treated a complete stranger. She slapped my hand for trying to eat something in my own house," I said without any emotion in my voice. "And you told her that she was the boss of the house, that I needed her permission even to breathe. Do you even remember that, Marcus?" He nodded, completely unable to look at me, with shame clearly painted on every single line of his face. "I think about it every single day," he cried. "Every day I hate myself for ever saying those words. Dad must be rolling over in his grave because of what I've become. I betrayed everything that you both ever taught me. I betrayed the only person who has always been there for me." His pain was very real. I could see it clearly. But pain simply couldn't erase months of abuse and humiliation. "Do you even know how I felt that night?" I asked, and for the very first time my voice actually trembled. I felt like my own son had died. That the boy that I had raised, cared for, and loved with all of my heart had simply disappeared. And in his place was a cruel stranger. I died 1,000 times during those months, Marcus. 1,000 times. I wished that I wouldn't wake up every morning because the pain of living in my own house and being treated like that was completely unbearable. I know, Mom. I know. And I have absolutely no excuses, he said, finally looking directly up at me. Tiffany manipulated me, but I allowed her to do it. I chose to believe her instead of you. I chose every single day to treat you badly because it was much easier than actually confronting her. I am completely and utterly guilty, and I don't expect you to ever forgive me. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. I finally see everything that I have lost. We were silent for a very long moment. Beverly had discreetly disappeared, leaving us completely alone. I looked at my son kneeling there on the floor, completely shattered and remorseful, and I felt a mixture of emotions that was so incredibly complex that I couldn't even begin to separate them. Love, pain, anger, and compassion, all mixed together in an impossible knot in my chest. Apologies are simply not enough, Marcus, I finally said. You can't just destroy a person for months on end, and then expect a few tears to magically fix everything. Marcus nodded in agreement. I know. I'm not asking you to come back or to forgive me right now. I just really needed to tell you that I'm truly sorry, and that you have every single right to completely hate me. I don't hate you, Marcus, I admitted, feeling my own tears begin to form. That's actually the worst part of all of this. After everything that you have done to me, I still love you because you are my son, but I don't trust you anymore. And I honestly don't know if I will ever be able to trust you again. Those words broke both of us because they represented the most painful truth that existed between us. What are you going to do now? I asked him after a moment. Marcus simply shrugged, completely defeated. I really don't know. The house is without any electricity or water. I owe 3 months of property taxes and 2 months of utilities. My job barely even pays for food. I'll probably end up losing the house anyway. There was a strange sense of acceptance in his voice, as if he truly knew that he deserved to lose absolutely everything. It's still my house, Marcus, I reminded him softly. It's still in my name. You actually aren't going to lose it because technically it was never even yours to begin with. I watched him process that information, realizing yet another layer of his own stupidity. He had actually fought so hard for a house that wasn't even legally his. He had betrayed his own mother for something that he had never even owned. I can start the eviction process immediately if I want to, I continued. My lawyer has said that in just about 2 months you would be completely out and the house would once again be completely and solely mine. I saw fear flash across his face. Are you actually going to do it? His voice was barely a whisper. I honestly don't know yet, I answered honestly. Part of me really wants my house back. But another part of me never wants to return to that place that is now filled with so many painful memories. Marcus remained completely silent, not daring to ask for anything, not even expecting anything at all. That humility, that acceptance of the consequences of his own actions, was completely new. Maybe, for the very first time in his entire life, he was actually facing reality without anyone there to protect him. Beverly prepared you something to eat, I said, pointing toward the kitchen. Go and eat something. You look absolutely terrible. I really don't deserve your kindness, he said without even moving. I probably don't actually disagree, but I'm honestly not being kind for you. I'm doing it because I am simply not like Tiffany. I don't just abandon people when they are at their lowest point, even when they have hurt me very deeply. It was a silent lesson, a very clear demonstration of the vast difference between real love and the manipulation that he had confused it with for so long. Marcus ate silently in the kitchen while I remained in the living room, still processing everything that had just happened. When he finished eating, he stood in the doorway, ready to leave. Thank you for actually listening to me, Mom. And thank you for the food. I know that I don't deserve any of this. I nodded without saying anything else at all. I watched him walk away down the street, his shoulders slumped and his head hung low, just a mere shadow of the man that he used to be. 2 months passed since that incredibly difficult visit from Marcus. 2 months in which I had to make some of the most difficult decisions of my entire life. I didn't go back to the house immediately. I desperately needed time to heal, to carefully recover all of the pieces of myself that I had lost during those months of torment. Beverly was my rock and my anchor throughout that entire process, constantly reminding me every single day that I deserved both respect and dignity. Marcus didn't actually show up again, but he sent me very short text messages every week. He didn't ask for anything at all, just very brief updates. I got a second job at a gas station. I paid the water bill. The water is working again. I cleaned the whole house. It looks like you used to keep it. They were very simple messages that showed a genuine effort for the first time in a very long time, but I still wasn't quite ready to reply to any of them. It was actually Beverly's attorney who finally helped me to see things very clearly. Ms. Vaughn, that house is rightfully yours. You have 3 very clear options. You can get it back and then move back in. You can get it back and sell it to start over somewhere completely new. Or you can keep it and rent it out while you continue to live elsewhere. But what you absolutely cannot do is simply let fear make any of these decisions for you. She was absolutely right. I had fled my house, but I was still allowing that place to have complete control over me. I was still a prisoner, even if I wasn't physically there anymore. So, I finally made a decision. I would return, but it would be on my own terms, no question about it. This house was mine, my sanctuary, and it was absolutely time to take it back, completely and unequivocally. I instructed my attorney to draft a legal document outlining the terms. It wasn't an eviction notice, but rather a formal agreement that both Marcus and I would adhere to. Marcus could continue living in the house, but only under very specific, clearly defined conditions. He would be responsible for paying a symbolic rent of $200 each month, which would be deposited directly into a savings account established solely in his name. This money would be there for him so that when he felt ready and the time was right, he could truly become independent and self-sufficient. He also had to commit to maintaining the house in absolutely perfect condition, ensuring it was clean, well-kept, and free of any damage. And most importantly of all, he was required to attend regular therapy sessions to address the ways in which he had been manipulated by Tiffany, and to begin the difficult but necessary process of repairing our damaged relationship. When I presented the document to Marcus at a neutral coffee shop, a place where neither of us felt like we had the upper hand, his hands trembled visibly as he carefully read through each page. "You're giving me another chance?" he asked, his voice cracking with emotion and his eyes welling up with tears. "It's not a chance, Marcus," I clarified, my voice firm but laced with a hint of compassion. "It's a contractual agreement, a formal understanding with serious consequences. If you fail to meet any of these requirements, if you slip up on even one point, you will have to leave the house immediately, and there will be no further discussion about it. Do you understand the gravity of this?" I pressed. "I understand." He nodded his head fervently, his eyes locked on mine. "And Mom, about the rent money, I can pay you more than that. I'm working 2 jobs now, so I have the means." I interrupted him, raising my hand to silence him gently. "It's not about the money, Marcus. It's about you learning to appreciate the value of things, to understand that nothing in this world is truly free, and that every action we take has consequences, whether good or bad. The $200 is symbolic, yes, but it's also incredibly important for you to internalize these lessons." He signed the document without a moment's hesitation, demonstrating his commitment. But I wasn't ready to move back into the house just yet. Instead, I decided to extend my stay with Beverly for a few more months. I needed to see tangible evidence, proof beyond just his words, that Marcus had genuinely changed and was committed to following through on his promises. And much to my surprise and relief, he did exactly that. He consistently sent me photos of the impeccably clean house every week, along with proof of payment for all the utilities, and even copies of certificates of attendance from each of his therapy sessions. In his therapy, as he later shared with me, he was finally able to fully process the extent to which Tiffany had manipulated him. He came to understand how she had skillfully identified his deepest insecurities, his unemployment, his feelings of inadequacy, his overall vulnerability, and expertly used them to transform him into her unwitting puppet. He realized how she had systematically isolated him from me, his own mother, until he was completely unable to see reality clearly. His therapist helped him understand that even though he had been a victim of manipulation, he was still ultimately responsible for his own actions and choices. That distinction was absolutely crucial for his healing and growth. 3 months after signing the agreement, I finally felt ready to return to my house. Marcus greeted me at the door, looking visibly nervous but also eager to please. The house was truly impeccable, exceeding all my expectations. He had cleaned every single corner, leaving no speck of dust untouched. He had diligently repaired things that were broken, fixing every little imperfection. He had even gone the extra mile and placed fresh flowers in the vase by the entrance, the very same vase that Tiffany had callously thrown away, which he had carefully recovered and restored. "Welcome home, Mom," he said, his voice still a little shaky with emotion. I walked slowly through each of the rooms, taking in all the changes he had made. My favorite armchair, the one I always curled up in to read, was back in its original spot, perfectly positioned near the window. The photographs that Tiffany had carelessly stored away were back on the walls, proudly displaying cherished memories. My closet held all my clothes, meticulously organized and neatly arranged. He had completely erased every trace of Tiffany from the house, as if she had never even existed within its walls. But the most important thing was that he had somehow managed to recover the very spirit of home that the house had possessed before Tiffany's arrival. It no longer felt like a cold, sterile prison, but like a warm, comforting refuge once again. "You did a good job, Marcus," I told him sincerely, and I visibly saw his shoulders relax with relief. "Thank you for giving me this chance, Mom," he replied. "I know I don't deserve it after everything I put you through, but I swear I won't disappoint you again." The following months were dedicated to a slow and steady process of rebuilding. Marcus and I couldn't simply go back to the way we were before because that was simply impossible. Something fundamental had been broken between us, a deep wound that could never be fully healed. But instead of dwelling on the past, we focused on building something new, something different. A relationship based on mutual respect, clearly defined boundaries, and complete honesty. I was no longer the mother who did everything for her son without expecting anything in return. And he was no longer the son who took my love and support for granted. We were 2 adults, learning to coexist with the scars of the past, and forging a new path forward together. Marcus worked incredibly hard at his 2 jobs, dedicating himself to proving his worth. He saved every single penny he could, diligently preparing for his future. Then, about 6 months after signing the agreement, he came home one evening with some exciting news to share. "Mom, I think I'm finally ready to start looking for my own apartment," he announced, his eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "I've saved up enough money for the security deposit and the first month's rent." I felt a complex mixture of emotions: pride in his accomplishments, relief that he was finally taking responsibility for his life, and a tinge of sadness at the thought of him leaving the house. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I asked, wanting to make sure he had truly thought this through. "Completely sure, Mom," he replied with unwavering conviction. "It's time for me to be truly independent. It's time for me to prove to myself, and to everyone else, that I can live my own life without being a burden to anyone." The day Marcus moved into his small apartment, I helped him pack up his belongings. It was a strange and bittersweet experience, filled with a mix of emotions. This time, however, the separation felt healthy and necessary, a positive step forward for both of us, chosen for all the right reasons. "Visit often," I told him as I loaded the last box into his car. "And Mom," he replied, giving me a heartfelt hug, "thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason in the world to do so. Now I live alone in my house finally, as it should have been after Arthur passed away. Beverly comes to visit me 3 times a week, and sometimes we stay up late into the night, talking, laughing, and sharing our lives with each other. Marcus comes over for dinner every Sunday, and we use that time to connect and catch up. Our relationship isn't perfect by any means, but it's real, authentic, and built on honest foundations. He is still actively engaged in therapy, diligently working on his issues and continuing to grow as a person. I also made the decision to start therapy myself, so I could heal from the emotional wounds those difficult months had inflicted upon me. Sometimes I find myself thinking about Tiffany, wondering where she is and what she's up to. As far as I know, she has found another vulnerable man with money, and is repeating the same manipulative patterns. I can only hope that this new person possesses the strength and resilience that Marcus initially lacked, and that they are able to escape from her clutches in time. But ultimately, it's no longer my problem or my worry. She is a closed chapter in our lives, a painful memory that I try not to dwell on. What I learned from this entire experience is that love without respect is not true love at all. It's nothing more than abuse disguised in a deceptive package. I learned that family doesn't automatically give you the right to mistreat someone, and that sometimes, moving away from the people you love is the only way to save yourself and give them a chance to grow and mature. And above all, I learned that it's never ever too late to reclaim your dignity, no matter how long you have been without it. My house is once again my sanctuary, a place where I feel safe and at peace. The walls no longer echo with the sounds of humiliation and despair, but with the sounds of the music I love to play, the laughter I share with Beverly, and the honest, heartfelt conversations I have with Marcus when he visits. I got my life back piece by piece. I got my personal space back, the space that had been so violently violated. And most importantly, I got myself back, my confidence, my self-respect, and my sense of worth. That night when I tried to open the refrigerator and received a shocking slap seems like a distant, horrible dream now. A chilling reminder of how low a person can fall when they forget their own worth and allow others to diminish them. But it's also a powerful reminder of the strength I found within myself when I finally said enough and refused to tolerate any more mistreatment. When I finally chose my own well-being over the crippling fear of loneliness and isolation. I am 62 years old now, and in many ways I am starting over, rebuilding my life from the ground up. Some people might say it's too late to begin again at this age, that I should just accept my circumstances and resign myself to a life of unhappiness. But I know in my heart that it's never too late to choose dignity and self-respect. It's never too late to reclaim your life and take control of your own destiny. And it's never ever too late to remember that you deserve respect, especially in your own home, and especially from the people who claim to love you. This is my story, the story of my journey. It is not a story of revenge or retribution, but a story of recovery, healing, and self-discovery. It's not about punishing those who have wronged me, but about finding peace and moving forward with grace and resilience. And if anyone out there who is going through something similar to what I experienced happens to read this, I want you to know this. You have the power to change your situation, no matter how hopeless it may seem. You may be afraid and you may feel weak and powerless, but inside you lies a strength you don't even know you possess. You just need to take that first step, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. The rest will come after. Today, I open my refrigerator whenever I want, without fear or hesitation. I eat when I'm hungry without having to seek permission. I breathe freely without constantly worrying about what someone else might think or say. And every time I do these simple everyday things, I remember the price I paid for this newfound freedom, and I smile, because finally, after everything I've been through, I came home. Not just to the physical house, but to myself, the person I was always meant to be. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.